Okay, it's 7 p.m. Let's get started. Hey everyone, my name is Pushkar. I'm the owner and founder of Watt Wagons. This is our first AMA. The goal of this AMA is to answer questions about obviously Watt Wagons, so we'll be biased a little bit, but more importantly, share either new tech stuff, answer some questions like we have about voltages and watts and so on and so forth. And more importantly, educate our customers or customers in general about e-bikes, what is good, what is not good, how to evaluate e-bikes, and so on and so forth. So why don't we jump in and get started? In preparation for this, we'd asked for questions to be sent directly to us. Some of you guys have done that, and some I see are popping up here. Along with me is my colleague, Amit. Amit, his handle is Amit S, if you can see on the sidebar. So he has joined the company starting this past January, which is almost a month ago now. So welcome, Amit, welcome aboard. Amit is actually leading most of our marketing and videos and a lot of strategy right now. So you'll see more and more of him as we transition or as we go over the next few months. Okay, so let's jump in. I will start with a few questions about shipping to Canada, shipping to Alaska, shipping to Hawaii and beyond, and so on and so forth. So the quick thing is there are multiple facets to this question. The first thing, do you ship? So the answer is yes, we do. The issue becomes that we are still a little bit small compared to the larger firms. So what ends up happening is if we go to, let's say, a FedEx or a UPS, we don't quite get the rates that everybody else does. So our shipping rates, especially outside the continental US, tend to be quite, there's a significant jump. So you'll notice that the shipping rates to Canada are a little bit higher. The shipping rates to Hawaii are also higher. I believe we've shipped, like, I want to say one bike to Australia, a couple to Netherlands. So all these things are sort of starting to come up as we grow. So to that end, at least in the US, that includes Hawaii and Alaska, we now have better shipping rates. So pretty much the same rate that we have within the US will be applicable for Alaska and Hawaii. We are going to configure our portal so you can now start ordering there. So I want to get that away. The Canadian shipping rate also, we have, as we ship more, that rate has gone down. So if you have already paid for a higher shipping rate, I believe some of the founder series members of the Helios and the UC Pro Superbike, which was called the UC Pro Superbike earlier, have already paid. So watch out for a refund, or you can actually get, I think it's like $50 per bike has gone down. So you'll get some money back, and you can apply that either as a direct refund to you, or we can give you some lights or what have you. You can apply that as a credit towards your purchase as well. So absolutely that. The next question here is, okay, so once you ship, what about countries other than the US or Canada? So specifically for Europe, we are now partnering with InnoTrace. That's our partner that gives us, or that helps us make the controller, or that actually makes the controller, and we put a lot of configs on the firmware. So InnoTrace will actually be our partner in the EU. They're based out of Germany. We are getting them some frames. Obviously, there's a component shortage, but we are hoping that over the next 2 to 3 months, there's enough inventory so that we can start to provide quality bikes in the European market. I believe there is a certification that needs to be done, which, if I'm getting this right, it's called the homologation or something. Some certification needs to be done. So I think that's being done right now. So it just takes time. So the last one is Australia. So believe it or not, Australia is, I want to say, 16 or 17 hours ahead of us. So sometimes we will get, especially from December to March or April, which is traditionally summertime Australia, we will get a lot of inquiries from Australia about getting bikes there, shipping to New Zealand and all that. The issue is that those, we can't really ship right now to Australia and New Zealand not because we don't want to, but shipping batteries is just prohibitively expensive, especially if it goes from the US to Australia and New Zealand. Now, it's interesting that right now our batteries are being made in Asia, some in Taiwan, some in China, like every other e-bike company is doing, but we are looking at transitioning to building them locally here. And that's another thing that we will sort of touch upon, not right now, but a couple of months, 3 months, 4 months down the line. We're working on something really exciting, and that will be at a battery level. And of course, like is the case with everything that Watt Wagons does, it will be backward compatible to pretty much all the bikes we've sold so far. So keep a lookout for that, just a quick teaser. 2 more questions, and then I'll open it up to some of the ones that have come up here. If a customer orders a Helios in February, when would they realistically be receiving it, excluding shipping time? So Helios frames are being produced right now. We are getting them air shipped, so their ETA to get here would be mid-March or late March. That's what we're targeting. And then it takes 2 to 3 weeks to build and ship. So there are orders that have already been placed, so they will be delivered first. So within the first 2 to 3 weeks, and then the rest of the orders. So realistically, if you order in February, that puts you right around early May before we can deliver the bike. I mean, the bikes will be here. You can configure them, but physically delivering the bikes would be around early May. Okay, so I'm going to scroll back up all the way to the top. Okay, so W. Davidson. So are there other people curious about BBSHD controllers for voltages above 58 in search of higher cadence? I'm not sure I fully understand the question, if it's about the BBSHD being able to do above 58 volts. I guess it does. So I'll give everybody a quick primer on motors in general, right? So most of the e-bike motors today are anywhere between, let's say, 250 watts to what we are selling up to 3,000 watts, right? That's e-bike, what we call as a bike that you pedal and then you go in the mid-drive space. In the direct drive or a hub drive, you can drive up those all the way up to, I'm going to say, 10 kilowatts or something like that. An insane power. The entire wheel is a motor, right? So I'm excluding that for just conversation purposes. So a realistic range for every motor that you can ride on and get some value from, or at least is a legal bike in some ways, is between 250 to around 3,000 watts. So remember the number 3,000. That's the upper bound that we're talking about. So the other part is batteries. So batteries themselves, so I'm opening up this remote, right? So this is my TV remote. I'm opening this up. So within this is a AAA battery, but very similar to this, there could be a AA battery, and that's what we're talking about. So most of the batteries right now are the AA size batteries, which are called the 18650 form factor. Now these 18650 form factor batteries, depending on the quality and the chemistry, tend to have the highest discharge rate. So like literally pedal to the metal, you put a pack together and you just drain without any battery management system, without any BMS. They will discharge at most at 100 amps. So you have 3 kilowatt, which is the motor, and you have 100 amps, which is the maximum a battery discharge rate can support. So what battery would you need? What voltage would you need to make this happen? So it's literally 3,000 divided by 100 would be 30 volts. Great. So if you want to build a bike, but that is without the BMS, right? Obviously, you're not charging at 100 amps. You're putting a BMS because you don't want to damage the cell. So let's say it's half the capacity, 50 amps. So you'll see that the BMS, as soon as you put the BMS in, the discharge rate for a battery is nearly half, just to protect the battery. Obviously, the 80-20 rule matters, but just for conversation purposes. So now you have a 50 amp battery and you have 3,000 watts. So now for 50 amps, you divide 3,000 by 50 and you get 60 volts, which is right around about 58.8 volts. So Great. Now that's a battery we can make. 60 volts is basically 58.8 volts is the fully charged version of a 52 volt pack. Great. So usually when people come and ask us, oh, well, I want a 72 volt battery or a 100 volt battery, why don't you support that? The answer is we don't need to, right? So no addition, I mean, even if you put a 10,000 volt battery pack on, I mean, obviously it will fry the motor, don't get me wrong, but it's really not adding anything to the performance of the motor because the motor is only restricted at 3,000 watts. So so now going back to this BBSHD question, now, can you pump more voltage to BBSHD? I'm sure you can. The question at that point becomes, what are we trying to build here, right? I mean, the motor only needs 1,800 watts, 1,800, not even 3,000, 1,800. So 1,800 divided by 50, right? It's not going to give you a whole lot of, I mean, there's not a lot of need for a 58 volt battery. I mean, you could actually deliver this with a 48 volt battery, turns out, right? And fully charged at 54.6. So yeah, I mean, you can absolutely build any controller, put a bigger battery pack, doesn't really matter. The motor is only operating at a certain wattage level. You only need this much battery to support it. Now, just taking it a step further, and before I sort of round out this answer, is the same holds true when you're looking at, let's say, the Suron or the Cake bikes or Zero, right? Now, these have bigger, more powerful motors. I believe the Suron has up to 5 kilowatts. The Cake has 8 to 10 kilowatts. Zero has 20 kilowatts. So as soon as you increase the kilowatts and your battery discharge can only be 100 amps, you actually need a higher voltage battery to meet that power level. And that is why you will see that for the Suron, especially, you will need a 72. It could also take a 96 volt pack because it can take, you can lower the discharge rate and get better performance for the batteries, right? So just remember that as you evaluate motors, or if somebody comes and says, well, why can't you put 72 volts? You don't need it, right? Okay, so hopefully that sort of answers the BBSHD question where, can you get more volts? 100%. Is it going to do anything or add anything? Probably not. I mean, practically probably not. Okay, next question. I'll just go down the list. Alaska. Alan, excellent. Yep, we are now shipping to Alaska. It'll be ground shipped, so you should be good to go. Gavin, at 1,000 watts, what is the estimated top speed of the Helios? Great question. This is something that I feel sort of strongly about, and I'll just mention things that are sort of real, but things that need to sort of, I mean, we don't want to hide behind wattage, so don't get me wrong. So speed fundamentally is a function of gear ratio. So as an example, I think there are calculators. If you go to our forums, I believe there are, I think Scrambler or somebody has a gear speed calculator or something, and you can use that. Essentially, you want to put your front cog, let's say it's 60 tooth in our case, and the rear cog is, let's say, 20, just for simplicity. So the gear ratio is 60 divided by 20, which is 3. So at this gear ratio, it doesn't matter what you do. If you're pedaling, the most you're pedaling, you can only go so fast, right? The way we get around that is now we have this internal gear hub, which will change this gear ratio. So you will get, give or take, from 5 to 2. So it's 5 is your gear ratio. So you can go higher. So going back to this question, what's the estimated top speed? So we recommend, sticking to the local laws, which is 28 miles per hour for a class 3 bike and so on and so forth. But realistically, with the 60-20 or 60-19, we have riders who can routinely go north of 30, 35. I believe there's a video that I've seen where somebody did like 43 miles per hour. Not recommended. Just do not do that. Just stick with it. So speed is not a concern. You can go, and 1,000 watts isn't really affecting it. It is more the assist the 1,000 watt provides to help you get to that speed. So the only difference is the 2,300 watt nominal is technically faster than a Porsche for the first half a second. I mean, the glorious half a second, it'll be faster. So just think about it like that. The wattage improves the acceleration. The gear ratio determines the speed. Now, there's another post that I made earlier, which is there's another subtlety to this, so it's not quite 100% correct. And that is that as you pedal, the higher wattage motor is going to provide you more assist. So let's say your cadence level is 70 RPM. On a 750 watt motor at 70 RPM, you can maintain, let's say, 20 miles per hour. But at 2300 watt at 70 RPM, you're probably going to be able to maintain 25 miles per hour. Again, not precise numbers, but just to highlight the difference. And that's because for every turn, the motor gives you more assist. The top speed that you can get across both may increase a little bit, so it goes beyond the gear ratio a little bit, but nothing that gear ratio is still the primary driver. Billy, I missed that question about the new display. Yes, we are still working on the new display. There are a couple of things that we want to put in. Again, remember the conversation that I just had about the battery pack. So we are working on something that is interesting, which we want to tie back to the display. So we have the prototypes. I think I shared the device online at some point back in late November. So we are still producing it. The firmware is getting updated, and there are a couple of more features we are adding, especially low power Bluetooth and also CAN protocol. Okay. Regarding color options from Cerakote, are you able to select colors from any series? No. Great question. So the color options that we are doing right now are from the H series. So for Cerakote, we are recommending choosing colors from the H series. Next question. Unrestricted. Sorry, I think I scrolled too much. Okay, Saunders are starting to arrive. Oh, excellent. That's awesome. Update on Archon X1 with the new canvas. Great. So, Jim, we have the CAN protocol already. So we've tested it. So when I say we, means us and InnoTrace. So we've tested it. It's good. Germany is still getting up to speed. So I think, and we are testing it a little bit more. Realistically, you're looking at June 1 to July 1st by the time we have something from Germany. It's working really well. The efficiency is still there. There's a newer display that that again I was talking to you about. So we'll be there. I want to say June 1 to July 1 is what we're looking at to get to production. Okay. Why did you change Manitou Suntour shock on Hydra? Manitou. Oh, great. From Matic to Suntour. Yeah. So Matics are no longer available. So we bought pretty much all the Matics that were in stock. They've already been spoken for as part of the early orders. So Suntour is, again, the one that we're putting on is Epixon, which is a good base fork. I mean, I think it's technically higher rated than Matic, but we are still offering that as a base. You can get the Mezzo Pro, no problem. And also, yeah, so that's the reason why. Next one. Why would someone order it with 1000 or 2300 watt and not derestricted? Great question. So let me back up a little bit and tell you what the whole throttle issue is. So when a user is riding the bike, so let's say you're riding the bike, you have a good sense for what gear to be in, right? And because of that, as you pedal, the power comes on, you're in the right gear and you're fine. What happens with the throttle, so I'm using left hand because I use my throttle on the left, is the throttle does not know what gear a rider is in. So imagine that, now that is one. So just remember that the throttle has so there's no user feedback. User feedback is, well, the bike is not moving, so I'm going to push it a little bit more. All this while it's probably in the wrong gear, right? So notice that throttle A.1, the throttle has no user feedback. So you don't know what gear you're in. Second, and this is extremely important for everybody to know, all bike components that are out there, doesn't matter whether it's Rohloff, Kindernay, chain, cassette, drivetrain, sprockets, cogs, does not matter. Anything to do with drivetrain is rated for around 230 Newton meters of torque, give or take 5-10%. So every component out there, that's like the unofficial standard. So you pick up something, if you don't know any better, it's 230 Newton meters of torque. With the motor that is 2300 watt, and that's not geared, if you push the throttle, that's derestricted throttle, if you don't have the feedback, then the entire 230 Newton meters of torque is going to hit your drivetrain in a split second. There is no ramp up. And just like that, you're going to break teeth on your internal gear hub, you're going to skip your chain, you're going to break your teeth cogs on the rear cassette. So it's not a gear hub problem, it's also a cassette problem. So you absolutely strip your teeth, the teeth on the cogs will start slipping as soon as you hit the throttle at 2300 watts. So our recommendation is, since the throttle and the pedal assist are on two different circuits, the pedal assist can go all the way, it doesn't really matter. When we have tested up to 3500 watts, it doesn't matter, as long as you're on the right gear and at the right speed. But the throttle, just restricted to 1000 watts or 750 like we do. It's not a hub thing, it's just save your components. It's going to get you there anyways, right? I mean, so there's no upper bound on speed. So I would recommend doing that. And Doug, thank you. Yeah, that was actually a great response, Doug. Okay, unrestricted throttle voids the warranty. That's right. And it also voids the warranty because obviously exceeds the design spec. Does it void the warranty of the hub if you derestrict the throttle? Yes, it does. How will we know? Well, chances are if you destroy the hub, you're going to call us. We will ask you for the motor, the serial number. We'll get the motor from you. We can check that it was changed. It maintains the logs. Are you going to work on a 60 or 72 volt battery system? I believe, Andrew, I just answered that earlier on. Basically, we don't need to because we are topping out at 3000, which is well within the spec of a 52 volt battery system. 60 or 72 is not going to add any. What is the highest voltage that X1 can handle? It is 58.8, which is rounded up to 60 volts. So if you see a bike which is an Ultra and says, oh, we support 60 volts, you already have that. There is nothing new there. I want more cadence. Okay. Oh, that's a BBSHD question. I want more cadence from BBSHD, which means the motor needs more RPM, which means more cadence. Current is a function of torque and drag. That's right. Just let's take this offline. I want to understand this a little better. Maybe my answer was not up to what you wanted to ask. So I apologize for that. Oh, hi, Reed. How from EBR? That's great. Hey. Jeff, okay. As your company grows, will your bikes go down in price? Yes, I hope so. So, by the way, our price right now that some of the founders are getting, as well as the new one. So obviously founders are a great deal, don't get me wrong, but you can actually, we are giving a lot more bike for the price that we're charging right now. So as an example, the controller is now included. So even if you do it up to 2300 watts, we've also reduced the price because of the warranty things. So you'll see that on an average, the bike is slightly cheaper. And you can actually now start from 4,700 or so. The base price has gone up a little bit. And that's because, as I've been transparent about this on the forums, every vendor out there, that includes, all the top names, whether it's Shimano, SRAM, not Bafang necessarily, but pretty much everybody, the saddle guys, the handlebar guys, the light guys, across the board, the price has increased 10 to 15%, especially on the premium side. So at some point, even though we may try to, but there will still be a floor. But yeah. But again, I would agree with Charles. I think our prices are very competitive. I think I would almost say that it is hard to build a bike, even yourself, even if you get components on sale, to match what we have at retail. I think I can definitely say that for sure. I think just knowing where we are price-wise, or very close, I think we'll be living in 10, 15, like $50, $60 or so. Oh, do you prefer Rohloff or Kindernay? So I would say that Rohloff is great, Kindernay is great. My preference is about the action to change the gear. So that is my number one sort of thing. So with the Rohloff, it's actually great. You can actually see what gear you're on. So don't get me wrong. But especially if you're doing off-road, more often than not, you're tilting your bike a lot, you're leaning over and so on and so forth. So there's a high degree of probability that you will shift your gear without intending to. So if you are doing MTB, Rohloff or Kindernay, I would recommend Kindernay just because it's a traditional thumb shifter. There's little chance to do anything. The other part also is, especially with an MTB, actually even with a regular bike, the Rohloffs have a cable system like every other hub does, but the Kindernays have hydraulic lines. And because of that, they are always tuned. So Rohloff, if you've ever seen, I think there's a box which you have to tune and tighten in a particular way to get there. Doesn't really matter for commuters, but if you're on an MTB side and you're blowing things up left, right, and center, I mean, with your tires or your rims or what have you, I would say Kindernay is probably much better. Also, I think the Kindernay doesn't make as much noise. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but when you shake it, I mean, so when you're going up and down or you're jumping over a rough terrain, I just think that Rohloff's, Kindernays make lesser noise. I think they're slightly quieter. Okay, we are coming up on 7:30. I was hoping to be at 7:30, but let's keep going and hopefully I'll answer as many as I can. When ordering the Ultra, the choice of voltage is 48 or 52. If 52 is chosen, does that mean I would not be able to use a 48-volt battery? Oh, great question. So the answer is you can use any battery that you want. There are two things you want to note. The display will show you what the motor is configured at. So if you choose a 52-volt motor, the percentage that is displayed on the battery percentage, which is displayed on the DPC18, will correspond to 52 volts. And similarly, if the motor is 48 volts, the percentage will be corresponding to 48 volts. So the thing here is you want to know that if you want to flip between 52 and 48, make sure your display just changes from percentage to voltage, and you're good to go. The other thing is, if you are using a combination of 52 and 48, I would recommend tuning the motor to 48. And there's a reason why. So, sorry, to 52. Because 52-volt motor has a cutoff of around 43 or 42.9 volts or something like that, right? If you configure your motor to be a 48-volt motor, the cutoff is actually at 40 or 39.6 volts or something like that. So if you used a 52-volt battery with a 48-volt controller, the 48-volt controller will still start sucking power from the 52-volt battery till it goes to 40 volts. And you know it's never going to hit 40 volts. So it's actually going to deep discharge your 52-volt battery pack and completely kill it. So if you are using a hybrid, which is 52 and a 48, my recommendation is use a 52-volt motor. So you are losing a little bit of capacity on the 48-volt pack, but you are preventing unintentional damage to the 52-volt pack. If you want, just rewind this answer when we post this back online. But you should not have any problems using either. Just switch your display from 48 to 52. So if I purchase the harness, do I still need to pay 1,000 to the district? That's a good question, Amanda. So the short answer is not right now. So right now, if you do the harness, you can derestrict, not a problem at all. But that's the answer. Yes. So some people don't want that, so they want to pay just $100, but you're better off just taking the programming harness and doing it yourself. But note that in either case, if you do change it and if it damages the components, we still don't want, and we will not, we don't want to take liability for the hub. So, okay, when are you going to show Helios? Oh man, Ron, I owe you that. We posted some pictures on EBR. I will send a link. The step-through frame is still on its way, it was shipped. So as soon as that's ready, we'll build it. This may be a similar question. When are you going to do that? Okay. What do you view, Adele? So what do you view as the differences between the Magura MT5s and the Hayes Dominion A4? Great question. So Maguras are great brakes. So from an MT5E perspective, I think they can also work with a 2 millimeter thick or 2.1 millimeter thick, the new Magura rotors, which are the MDRP rotors, which are now going to be, which we now put on our bikes. So, but what I've noticed is that the pad area of the Dominions is slightly larger than the Maguras. So there's more contact. And because of that, I've always noticed that the Dominions brake far better, like doesn't matter what terrain you throw them at, far better than MT5Es for that delta. So, I mean, it's clearly a little bit more expensive. They're a premium product, but especially if you're doing off-road, I would say the Dominions would be an absolutely worthy upgrade. Jason Pride, will you ever offer the Hydra with the Gates belt drive? Oh, wow. Yeah, so here's the deal, guys. So, I think there's a picture. I'll post it on the forums. I think we had a beta tester actually test a full suspension with a belt drive. What is happening right now is, even though technically it passes the initial test, we still don't feel supremely confident that, unless you put like 5,000, 6,000 miles on that bike to know if that setup will still work. It is a custom design. We have a patent pending for it. And I'm also working with a couple of other people to come up with a newer version of that design and so on and so forth. So the short answer is the frame is already compatible with the belt drive. We have a part that technically works, and that is retrofit to any bike out there. So it doesn't have to be just our bike. So any bike which has a frame brake, which is full suspension, or that you can route a belt through, you can use that part. So that is really what we're trying to solve. So we have something, but just needs to be tested a lot more. We're not quite there yet. Do you have any for the supercharger? Yes, actually, hold on. I may have one. Hold on. And while I bring this charger up, so the good thing about this charger is that you can actually tune it. It's a larger brick charger, so it's something that is more configurable, but again, very similar to what you would see. So here's a picture. I actually just had this charge today. It's a little bit hard to see. Can you see it? Oh, this is not a good camera, but here you will notice it has multiple charge levels. So you can do 70, 80, 90, 100%. And here you could actually do all the way from 4 amps to 10 amps. So this charger will actually give you pretty much, again, this has fairly thick, robust wires. So there are a couple of cool things here that we can do with this charger. Is the first, obviously, it's highly configurable. You could do all the way from 4 amps to 10 amps. This connector is unique for me, but we can change it. We can change it to Anderson's as well. The other part is you have the ability to actually charge your bikes, actually any Watt Wagons bikes, with a car charger. So the other end of that charger is another adapter that you can bring. So if you go to an AC, which is the SAE J1772, you can actually put that in. The other part of this actually goes into our charger, and you can charge using a car charger, which is really the holy grail. So instead of carrying 5 batteries, if you're commuting primarily and you're close to a car charging port, or if you're in a long ride, it's better to carry a charger like this that charges at 10 amps as opposed to carrying 5, 6, 7 batteries and then waiting. So literally tops off the batteries in like an hour, not an hour and a half, like I want to say like an hour and 10 minutes or so. And that's a 17 amp hour battery pack, the 52 volt 17 amp hour. So I'm doing the 80-20. That's why I'm saying it's like an hour and a half. So by the time you are grabbing a coffee, the battery is ready and good to go. We will have better pictures of it. We were trying to get our logo, but it is hard to do. And these chargers are being made by the same guys behind the scenes who make chargers for Zero, for example. So good quality, a little pricey, but fairly straightforward. What we were not able to do is to flip between 52 and 48. Right now, these are tied to 52 volts only. So that is definitely a big advantage of the Grin satiator, that it can actually do both 52 and 48 volts. So you can sort of approximate 48 on this, because 90% is or 60% charge is approximately 48 volts, 100% charge. So, but I would say 52 volts is where we are right now. Okay, who builds our titanium frames? So I cannot tell you that, John. Let me just put it this way: our frames are not being built by your traditional bicycle makers. So, and the reason is, if you look at our titanium frames, you will notice that the welds are really cool, very smooth, very clean. The bike welders, for example, if you go to, let's say, your traditional, what are those ones? XACD is like the popular one, right? They put out on Facebook all the time. If you do a close-up, you will notice that the welds suck, like terrible. It's like bubbles. Yeah, I would never sell that. So all I can say is our welders, our bikes are being made not by bike people. They're actually made by precision welding people. On the webpage, you refer to the Crosstour and UC Pro's legacy. Does that mean that they're going away? And great question, Dan. So no, they're not going away. The reason why we put them as legacy is there is not a lot of active change in the geometry that will happen. So over a period of time, as new models come up, legacy will become like a big category where, there are some bikes that are stable bikes, or we're not phasing away, but the demand is going to be less, we anticipate. But that being said, I must say the Crosstour has been quite popular, so maybe it doesn't deserve the legacy title. Any updates on the single shifter for Kindernay? There is a prototype. I was talking to the Kindernay product managers. I believe they do have a prototype. It's not production ready yet. I anticipate that it'll be available October, November this year to us, and then we can make that available to you. Jeff, thank you. Yep, absolutely. Is it possible to charge both batteries simultaneously with one charger? Not right now. Not right now. And the reason for that is our charger is not intelligent enough to know which batteries are charging. So remember the question, the thing was, if you had two mismatched voltages, so as soon as one battery charges and it sends back a signal that it's literally a voltmeter, it's going to read the voltmeter. So no, not right now. Charles, absolutely. You can make your changes before. You can make changes up to 2 weeks before delivery, which in this case, I just looked up your order. Absolutely. Will you offer a CVT transmission like Enviolo? So the short answer is no. So we have been in touch with Enviolo. We've actually tested their product, great products, but remember what I said about the 230 Newton meters being the upper bound. For Enviolos, for the Shimano, anything other than the 3-speed, which is 8-speed, 10-speed, 5-speed, 7-speed, doesn't really matter. Those upper bounds of torque are around 100 Newton meters. Even the M600, which is the smaller motor, which we are going to launch in a month or so, the peak is 120. So I've broken those hubs. Can you put them on? Absolutely. We cannot support them. We can't stand behind it because the manufacturer wouldn't stand behind it for us. So they don't certify for us. So just so that we're very clear, the manufacturer for Enviolo does not certify the hubs for Bafang M600 and Bafang M620. Best charging practice for long battery? Great question. So I would say that when I say 80-20, so I would say 90-20 is probably where we are at right now. So what you'll notice is all the bikes that we have sold since the beginning can balance their cells at right around 90%, right? So our initial, I think we were getting our batteries originally from EM3EV. Now we are transitioning to another local US vendor. So all those can be, as long as you're up to 90%, you are absolutely fine. The other thing is, by end of this year, hopefully sooner than that, if you buy a pack from us, let's say June or July, we are going to launch a pack that will do nearly 2,000 cycles as opposed to your traditional 600 to 700 cycles. And again, these are normal, like that's really 80-20. So if you do between 80 to 20% and 80%, that pack will last you for nearly 2,000 cycles. It's still in test. It's obviously newer chemistry, everything that you've seen so far, but and those are newer cells also. So that's something we are working on. There are a couple of really cool features we are putting in. I can tell you right now that if that happens, you will love that battery pack. It is just something, it is really cool. No, I cannot tell you. I think there was another question that came up here, who the vendor is. I will answer that one-on-one. I cannot share that vendor right now, but yeah, it's something that we are also investing in. So let me just be clear. We are also investing in getting our own CNC welder or something like that. It's a little bit expensive. We are not quite there yet, but the goal here is we want to offer that battery pack, the one that we are building, for all possible bike combinations. So whether you have a bike from us or you have a bike from your own manufacturer, you can use the Watt Wagons battery pack, which is going to be rated for 2000 cycles, and it'll have incredible battery chemistry along with fast charging. So you can charge that pack at 20 amps. 20 amps, literally 17-hour amp pack, 20 amps. As long as you're between 80 to 20, you should be good to go. Again, maybe 2000 is stretching it, but it's going to be a substantial number of cycles. It's going to be far bigger than what your traditional battery packs hold. Okay, when will email sending? Oh my God, Reid, yes. Again, as I mentioned on the forum yesterday and today, I did not send out, but hopefully we'll send it out tomorrow or day after at the latest. I mean, I have everything ready to go, but just laziness, I think. If I rarely ride off-road, Michael, so if I rarely ride off-road or shift frequently, will I notice a big difference with the Rohloff E-14 versus the Sturmey Archer? Does it impact top speed? It's basically, yeah, so Sturmey Archer will limit your top speed. So at least in our tests, I think Sturmey, with their gear ratio with 60 and 20 up front or what have you, I think you can get to 24, 25 miles, probably maybe around 20 to 25 miles. With the Rohloff, you can go up pretty much north of 28 with ease. So it does impact the top speed. Yeah, that's right. So a second Michael Williams question. Yeah. So yeah, Sturmey Archer will definitely be. So I think if you're actually getting a bike with Sturmey Archer, yeah, the top speed is going to be an issue. I mean, you can get around that by having an even larger front or smaller, but at some point there's only so much you can do with a belt drive. You need to have at least on the Sturmey Archer, the lowest you can realistically go is 22 to the rear, if I remember right. Maybe 20, and the front we only have clearance for up to 60. I believe Gates makes a 70, but that just throws off a lot of things. If you put too big a front and too small a back, you actually can't even get started because of the gear ratio. So your top speed will be higher, but you won't be able to go from 0 to that top speed without really struggling. Mark, yes, we should call them classic and not legacy. Absolutely. Will, hey, how are you? Dan, thank you. Will Rohloff E-14 ever be available? So the short answer is I cannot share that right now. So the short answer is I cannot comment on that right now. But we will have a better update by the end of the year. Dan, is there any reason to go 1000 watts or 2300 watts and have the restricted throttle? What does the restricted throttle restrict? Dan, I believe I answered that earlier. The restricted throttle restricts the total wattage output, and so you are basically capping the torque that is sent on the drivetrain. Any in-depth road test reviews, Joseph, for which bike? For Helios or for Hydra? For Hydra, we have off-road tests. So again, we have a bunch of videos. We are still uploading them. Again, not laziness, just haven't gotten around to it. But we will do that. For the Helios, once the bikes are built, we will absolutely do that. Just classic, no legacy, exactly, Dan. Yep, we will do classic. Makes sense. Amit, that's for you, man. Let's change it to classic. Will you offer an AWD bike? No, we are not geared to offer an AWD bike. I believe Christini has a patent on that, to my knowledge. And second, yeah, it just not something we can't go there. The issue with AWD is you need two motors, front and rear. The issue we are running into is that with the hub motors, we haven't found a good torque sensor that works consistently. And there is a German company that I was talking to last year that has a good torque sensor, but that means changing the motor. It just creating a problem and then trying to solve it. I'm sure somebody can. We are not geared for that. Will there be any setup required when the Hydra is delivered? Yes, you will have to twist the handlebar and put the pedals on. Depending on the packaging, and if we are able to get that packaging, you may also have to put the wheel in, but we are trying to figure out if we can still stick to our nearly assembled packaging. Will you be offering a GPS service soon? Yes, Amanda, we will be. As I've mentioned on the forums, we are still testing those, and in fact, give me a second. So these just came in. So these are really small. The way this GPS will work, again, a big thing would be these will be the first GPSs that will work inside a metal frame. So you can put them in any metal frame, and that is really our USP with these GPS devices. Again, we are still testing them. We will provide worldwide coverage at an excellent price. Absolutely. Will you reduce losing? Thanks. And Mark, oh, actually, if somebody wants answers to battery questions, you probably want to talk to Mark. He's probably more, he's better at that than I am. I'm clearly out of my depth. And that 80-20 thing, Mark, you're absolutely right. 80-20 is absolutely a known thing. 2000 cycles is something you can absolutely get if you maintain that 80-20 hygiene. Patrick, net positive. Hey, you did make one. Hey, net positive. Hey, you gotta post that video, man. And I believe, didn't you post that video with the 43 miles per hour? I want to say yeah. Yeah, let me check out your channel. I think you did. Okay. I saw there was an upgrade program. Can you give a discount on future parts? Yes, we do. We offer a 10% discount for future parts, not on the bikes per se. Bikes will be 5% or $300. I think that's what we have right now. But parts, you can get 10 to 15%, depending on the part. Can you explain more about this program? So the goal here is if you bought a bike from us, then like a rider, we need so the word I want to use is FOMO, which is fear of missing out, right? So as technology changes, me as a rider, I want to make sure that my bike is up to date, has the latest technology, and so on and so forth. So what we can do is offer you a program as part of Watt Wagons that as we change and we adapt and we grow and we have new parts, we will take the efforts to make sure that all these parts are backward compatible. So you can take the part, even like something like a GPS, which I believe is something that I just showed. Amit may not agree with me in terms of showing the GPS. Sorry about that, man. But you can actually now upgrade as we improve, right? Remember the battery pack thing? It'll fit the same mount that we've given you so far. If tomorrow we change the motor or the frame, you can actually just buy the motor and the frame from us and use all the parts that we gave you earlier, right? Including the headset and the forks, the wheels, and the drivetrain, etc. Right? So that's what we really mean by the Commuter Companion program. And we initially wanted to charge people money for it, but again, we haven't gotten around to it. I'm sure we will get around to it by the end of the year to get everybody enrolled. But so far, we've just been honoring that as part of the sign-up process. Mark, also most of the energy is lost to aerodynamics. Yeah, actually, you guys you definitely add Mark on YouTube if you can. He is pretty phenomenal. He's just absolutely kick-ass, has a ton of knowledge about batteries and motors, and I've learned a lot from him over the past year or 2 years. And he backs up pretty much everything with literally hard numbers. It's like I may put a more marketing spin on it, but absolutely talk to him as well. We probably have him as one of the guest speakers. Mark, if you're up for it, maybe want to have you as a guest speaker on the AMAs at some point to do deep dives in batteries. Will you bring to market a budget model? Yes. So Joe, we have the The city commuter version of the bike, which is the Bafang M600 version, that will be available. We are waiting on frames to get here. We've been waiting for 2 months now. So as soon as the frames are here, we will launch that. Should be fairly competitively priced. And again, we'll have, so there are 2 changes that have been made. Obviously, the first would be the controller. So it has the new controller, the X2, which will do the CAN bus, which is around June, July. And so individual controller will be available in June, July, but for our motors, it will be available slightly sooner. So we can do that. The second thing is with Bafang, we've worked with them to get the silent gear as part of the motor itself. So you don't need to purchase something separate. Now, obviously, there's a limitation. You can't really go beyond 1100 or 1200 watts. So it's not like you can throw like a 2 kilowatt controller on it and expect that silent gear to hold. I mean, it definitely can do more, I'm sure, but we will be restricting, I think, realistically around 750 watt nominal and around 11 to 1200 watt peak. So that is coming to the market. Give us a couple of, not a couple of weeks, at least a month or so for the frames to get here before we can know that. What is the 80-20 thing? So I think I just answered Mark, or, oh yeah, Mark just answered. Will you develop an app so we can use our phones to control the bike? Short answer is yes. We are working on that right now. Our first version of the app actually will launch along with the GPS service. As we move forward, it will start getting all the features that we were talking about. So it will be there. And by the end of the year, we will have more to control, not just the bike, but the motor, the battery, pretty much every single thing that is electronic on the bike. So yes, that is the goal. 80-20 thing. Okay. So guys, we want to, I know it's getting popular out there, so I'll try to stop it right around 8. Okay, a few more questions. So yes. Okay. For the Hydra, if the rear triangle fits 4.8-inch tire, could you fit a 3-inch in the same? Yes. So the 4.8-inch tire will fit a 29 by 2.6 and a 27.5 by 3. Yes, so it should fit both. But I just think it'll look weird. So yeah, I mean, 29 I think is better, but 27 might look slightly weird just from a looks perspective. The other time and voltage degradation, 100% charge process, 4.0 depend on. Yep, that's right, Mark. Will it be a hardtail? Yes, it will be a hardtail, Joe. The budget version will be a hardtail. And okay, I hope I answered most of the questions here. Let me, in the interest of time, let me do one more in terms of the motor itself. What is the approximate cost round trip shipment to LA? I mean, we have a flat shipping cost within the US. How should we package the motor? Or if you're shipping me the motor, then what I would do is I would use the UPS size medium box. It's a flat rate box. I think it's $15 coast to coast. Just pad it up with newspapers or junk mail. How long does the process usually take? So we usually try to turn things around on a weekly basis, but right now our controllers are not here. The newer batch is not here yet. So I think we will have those controllers here in 2 to 3 weeks. So then we will start again. We just ran out like last week. Did you say 3000 watt peak includes a stronger chainring spider? Yeah, so what we've done is that 3000 watts peak, originally when we started off, we wanted to offer a custom spider as well. But as we have fine-tuned the motor a little bit, the torque doesn't come in too strong, it's gradual. So the default spider works. That's why we've taken it off from the website. I don't think people need to buy that anymore. I mean, if you want to buy it, you can buy it. I just don't think there's a lot of value even at 3500. So we have somebody who's testing it at 3500 on the labs version, and it's still holding up. So that's pretty great. The programming cable option, 2 years of software upgrades. Other than upgrades, will it continue to work for my own manual programming permanently? Yes. So the short answer is yes. Could I purchase the programming cable after the fact? Yes, you can purchase it separately. Next, you have a Luna Apollo. The battery is internally peak BMS, but since it can't deliver 3000 watts. Okay, yeah. So the question is, you have a bike, in this case, they have a Luna Apollo where the BMS peaks at 50 amps, even though we are saying our controller can go up to 3000 volts, 3000 watts. So if I want 3000 watt upgrade, what is the best way to limit the max current to 50 amps? So it doesn't really matter. So what happens is the motor is designed to pull as much current as the BMS can give. The BMS is maxing out at 50, so you don't necessarily have to do anything. So as long as the BMS holds, technically you should be fine. For my battery upgrade, I consider adding a second in parallel. I know most straightforward approach is to use cells identical. I would say that instead of doing all this, just get a dual battery converter. I know we sell one, but get something which has good capacitors, directional, so diodes and all that stuff. This is the standard part. Don't get the one that Frey sells, by the way. So Frey has again, nothing against Frey. I think they make reasonable bikes, but their dual battery converter, it doesn't have the protection. I don't know what it's called. I forget that part. But what happens is if you put those batteries together and use with our controller, they can actually sometimes send up to 75 or 80 volts and hose the controller. So just don't use the Frey dual one, but I think pretty much everybody outside should work. I want to say King Meter has one. I know we have one. So you can get that anywhere. I think it's straightforward. But get a good one. It should be straightforward. I mean, it doesn't really matter. Okay, the one thing to remember is as long as both are 14S packs, which I believe you are, then it's fine. Regarding sizing of the Hydra, we are interested in size small. We need to know the actual measurements. Yes, so I will have better measurements for you once the frames get here. They are on their way right now. We have two smalls that are unspoken for. So actually just one unspoken for. Would California sales tax be added to the cost? Yes, we do charge sales tax in the US. We do not charge sales tax outside the US. What is the approximate shipping cost to Los Angeles? So US is flat rate, $300. Question for the Hydra, can the battery be charged out of the bike? Yes, the battery can be removed and charged outside the bike. How wide are the protaper aluminum bars? They are the same size. So I think everyone sends them at 780 mm and you can cut them down to 680 or 660, what have you. But they sell it at 780. We don't cut them just because we don't know. So we will ship you the default, but you can obviously trim them down to 680, 720, whatever you want. Can the bike be ordered without the throttle installed? Yeah, absolutely. Other than the higher amperage on the chargers, what's the benefit to upgrading? Does one charger charge the battery better? So I think it's not really. I mean, if the chargers are high quality, which ours are, regardless of which charger you buy, and as long as you have those 80-20 cutoffs, which are basically more convenience, you should be fine. The only reason why we offer 10 amps right now is because we are kind of future-proofing your purchase. So we know that our batteries, even the batteries that you have right now. So as an example, I'm just going to get the battery here. As an example, the batteries we sell right now, if you are in a pinch and you lose this port. This port is the limiting factor for our batteries. This port can only take 7 amps to charge the battery pack, right? So with the satiator, you're topped out at 7 amps. Turns out you can actually also charge it from the discharge leads. So if you're ever in a pinch, you lose this cable, you can use this to charge this battery pack at 10 to 12 amps. So our battery packs already have the charging feature. It's just that the limitation is this charging port. So with our newer generation batteries, hopefully by the end of the year, we are just going to swap out the charger port and you should be able to just plug that in as opposed to, doing everything from the pigtail. So that's really what it is. I think the big difference is you're buying something anyways. We want to give you something that is sort of future-proofing your purchase and allowing you to do more. Again, the limitation though is we do not support multiple voltage configs. Our batteries are 52 volts only. Yeah, hopefully next week. Thank you guys. Okay, it's 8. Any concerns off-roading the Helios? Yeah, I mean, it's not meant for downhill. So I just want to make that one thing I would say is whether it's Hydra or the Helios, our bikes are meant for trails and cross-country. Our bikes are not designed for enduro. I do not think that the carbon that is available right now in the e-bike space, at least the heavier e-bike space, should be used for enduro. Once you hit the 60, 70 pound mark, that's a lot of stress. I mean, can you do it once in a while? 100%. But if that's your primary use case, then I would say that there are better manufactured or better carbon out there. I don't want to say carbon, but just lighter bikes, right? I mean, pick something from Specialized. It's designed, it's super light. It's just a regular bike. You can do enduro, you can do downhill on it and not have a problem. I want to say, look at, there's a company in Colorado called Boulder Bikes? No, not Boulder. Gorilla Bikes. So check them out, actually. If you want just a downhill bike, not an e-bike, but a downhill bike, they're making something out of carbon, which is pretty phenomenal. Okay, all right, guys. I gotta go. We have a bunch of questions. Amit, I know you've taken these questions down. So thanks again. Thanks for showing up for today's AMAs. We will try to do this every Wednesday or every other Wednesday. I still have to check with Amit on the logistics. But thanks again. We will also make this recording available and annotated. If you're willing to help out Watt Wagons in any ways, as I always mention, we are growing. We need the feedback. We need the help. We are trying to be transparent. If there's anything that you feel we can do to improve, get better, newer components, newer accessories, newer controllers, or what have you, whatever you think is good, that'll help not just you, but other riders, please tell us. We are still small enough that we can pivot very quickly. Great. Thanks, everyone. Bye.